look. We're doing an example together. So at the very next page, So flip the page. We're going to do example, the first example together. Oh, before we do that, I want to point out one thing. Step 5 on your summary. So remember, step 4 is all about H naught. You're going to reject H naught or not reject H naught. Step 5 is all about your claim. So at some point you're going to have to say, you're going to talk about how, about what's going on with your claim. So in step 5, you're going to use rejects if H naught is your claim. You're going to use the word support if H1 is your claim. The reason why you're going to do that is because rejecting H naught in step 4, that rejects your claim if your claim is H naught. So if your claim is H naught, then rejecting H naught in step 4 also rejects your claim in step 5. If H1 is your claim, then rejecting H naught in step 4 supports your claim in step 5. Does that make sense? So that's why you're going to be using those wordings in step 5. The way to remember that is that QRS, right? The alphabet QRS, because H naught, you're going to use the word reject, R. If your claim is H1, you're going to use the word support, S. So it's kind of one way. Do you want to do it in a way to get down to it later? Would that be easier? So they have.
Yeah.
So it's less abstract.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so we're going to do an example together. The first one, step 1, say the hypothesis and identify the claim. Molly, did you want to read?
Yeah, I can read.
Okay, go ahead.
The example is obese young people. A researcher claims that based on the information obtained from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 17% of young people ages 2 to 19 are obese. To test this claim, she randomly selected 200 people ages 2 to 19 and found that 42 were obese. At alpha equals 0.05, is there enough evidence to reject the claim?
Okay, so first of all, how do I know this is a hypothesis test and not a confidence interval? So, Nathan, how do I know this is not a confidence interval? A confidence interval will always do what? Will always say what? It will always literally say, find the confidence interval, or it will say, what's the other word that's the same thing as confidence interval? Estimate. So if it says estimate or find the confidence interval, it's a confidence interval problem. There is no find the confidence interval or estimate anywhere in here. Everybody see that?
Yes.
On top of that, they're talking about evidence and rejecting in claims. So those are kind of hints that it's a hypothesis test. Great. Perfect. So first thing is going to be figure out what my claim is. So what's my claim? Researcher claims what? Yeah, that 17% are. The proportion is 17%. So my claim is that P equals 17%. Everybody good with that part? Yeah. So H naught is always, always, always what? Equals. So it's going to be that P equals 17%. Since that's also my claim, I'm going to write claim next to it. And in parentheses, I'm going to write in the word reject. Because I'm going to be using reject in step 5, I can just grab it from there. So you should put a little 1 here, or the circle right. You have to write step 1, you just put a 1 with a circle in it, that's fine. H naught is P is equal to 70%. So the H1 must be what? Not equal to. Since H naught's my claim, then H1 becomes the opposite, not equal to 17%. Good. Then I need to find the critical value. So everyone has this written up so far? Yeah. Critical value, I'm going to draw a picture. Here's my picture. Let's see, equals. Equals is 2 tail. Right, because not equal to could be less than or greater than. So I need to find, it's 2 tailed. So my critical value, it's 2 tailed, and it's, see what's my alpha. Alpha is 0.05. So alpha is really supposed to be like it's like a little fish, that little weird fish. You guys have seen a little fish symbol. It's kind of like that, a scrunched up fish symbol. Alpha is 0.05. So now I'm going to bust out my handy dandy. This is a proportion, so it's going to be. Is it going to be a z table or a t table?
Z table.
Easy peasy z table. Everybody on board?
Yes.
So I'm going to bust out my handy dandy z table and say, all right, two tail, 0.05, z table all the way down. Oh, boom. I know that one. 1.96. So it's going to be positive, negative 1.96 because it's two tailed. So negative 1.96 and positive 1.96. So everybody should have this down. I'm going to kind of check, make sure that you folks are all on board and drawing your pictures and shading. You have your step 1, ideally numbered. Yeah. We'll talk about it later. Okay. So that's our step 2. Step 3, I need to find the test stat. So to find the test stat, first I need to figure out what my p hat is. All right, so remember P naught is whatever is in your claim. Everybody on board with that?
Yes.
What's in my claim is my P naught. So what's my P naught? Everyone think about what your P naught is. I'm going to call on somebody randomly. Check with your neighbors. What's my P naught?
Yeah.
Zora, what's my P naught?
0.17.
0.17. Good. All right, so then I need to figure out from my problem what my p hat is. So I see the word randomly selected. Everyone see the randomly selected?
Yes.
Right here, randomly selected. Right. So that's kind of where I'm talking about my sample. Am I given a percentage there?
No.
I'm not given a percentage. There's no percent symbol anywhere there on that sentence. Everyone see that?
Yes.
So instead, they must have given me the number of people who said yes. Out of how many? How many people did I ask? 200. So out of 200, how many said yes? 42. Everybody on board? Okay, so my p hat is going to be 42 out of 200. So here are my pieces. My p hat, 42 out of 100, 21%. My P is from my claim, 0.17. And my Q is 1 minus that, 0.83. Remember the ones that I use, my P and my Q that I use in the little square root part is from the claim because I'm assuming the claim is correct. I'm assuming H naught's correct. Right? So whatever is in the claims, those numbers in the claims, that's what I'm going to be using here. So we're assuming it's going to be 0.17. And then we're going to see how things go from there. All right, so let's find our test stat. Let's see, so my test stat is going to be my p hat, 0.21, minus my, maybe I'll write it down. Here, I'll write down the whole formula. P hat minus p over square root of pq over n. All right, so write that down so you have it for future reference in case you need it. And then let's fill this stuff in. Let's see my p hat, 0.21. So once you start putting into the formula, you gotta make sure you take away the you gotta write them as decimals, not as percentages. Right? Because 21%, you can't write a percentage in your well, some calculators will, but it's just harder to put a percent symbol in there. So change it to a decimal, 21 cents, 0.21. Minus my p naught, or my p, 0.17 divided by square root of PQ 0.17 times 0.83 over N, 200 people. So now I'm going to bust out my, well, my top part is pretty easy. That's going to be 0.04. Now I got to find my bottom part. So 17 is 83. So I'm going to do 0.17. Again, work from the inside out. Times 0.83. Find that. Divide by 200. And I still have this E negative number. I need to square root that. So raise it. So here's the thing. Don't just write down 7.055. That's not the number. Everyone see that E negative 4 there? Do not just ignore that. That's super important. You're going to be off by a lot if you ignore that. So I like to not even write it down. I like to just square root it and not have to deal with it. So I'm going to raise it immediately. So I raise it to the 0.5 power. Square root it. 0.0265. 0.0265. 6. Sorry, 6. So I'm going to do 0.04 divided by 0.02656. More decimal places is better than none for this stuff. And I'll get 1.506 or 1.51. Everybody done with step 3? No. And I usually like to just do 3 and put a circle around it. All right, so my steps. So through the circle around it, that's my step 3. You don't have to do it in your calculator. You can just write down what I did. That's fine. So this way you have something to go off of. Now we're going to put this 1.506 into my picture where it belongs. So a couple things to note about my picture. I put in my 1.96 and I shaded. It's very, very important you shade your tails. That's your rejection region. So make sure when you draw your pictures, you shade the tail, so you know your rejection region. And then where does 1.51 go? Right around in here, somewhere in the non-rejection region, right? Everybody on board?
Yes.
I do not need to label my critical values because they are marked with the shaded areas. Everybody on board? But my critical value, I should mark that. 1.51, that's my critical value. Or sorry, not my critical value, that's my test stat. My bad. Test stat TS. So am I going to reject or not reject H naught? Right, exactly. So as long as you have this picture, do not reject H naught. That's all you got to put. You don't have to say why, because you have it in the picture. As long as you're shaded, you have your critical values and you have your rejection area shaded, and you put your test stat clearly in the whatever section it's in, then that's your reason. If you put it over here in the shaded area, then you would reject H naught. You'd say reject H naught. Is everybody on board? Come over here, I'd say reject H naught. Come over here, I'd say reject H naught. But in this middle part, I do not reject H naught. And the last part is this here. So, just as a heads up, the only parts that change is this guy here, and this, oops, and this one here. Everything else will stay the same for every problem for step 5. It's either there is blank enough evidence, they're blank enough evidence to blank the claim that and then whatever your claim is. You have to write your claim because you need to say what's going on with this. You have to show that you understand what's happening in the problem. That's important. The first part is matches step 4. So everyone look up and see the knot. Does everyone see the knot here?
Yeah.
That comes from this knot here. They match up. If you do not reject H knot, you do not have enough evidence. You're in this not enough evidence area. If you did reject H knot, then you would have enough evidence. Does that make sense? Rejecting H knot means there is enough evidence. Not rejecting H knot means there is not enough evidence. So this will match up with step 4. If you have a knot in step 4, you're going to have a knot in step 5. Everybody all right with that part? Yeah. The second part here comes from step 1. And Victoria's going to explain kind of how she thinks of it and remembers it.
So, okay. For step 5, it's all about rejecting or supporting the claim. At the beginning, you figure out your claim, right? Your claim is either going to be H naught or your claim is going to be H1. If your claim is H1, you want to support it because you want to support number 1. Whether that's for your team, like a friend in a game, you want to support number 1 all the time. And you're going to reject whoever is not. Reject H naught. Support number 1, reject not. So if your claim is H1, you're going to support them, always. If your claim is H naught, you're going to reject them.
Does that make sense? So it's just another way of remembering which word to use which time. So if your claim is H naught, you're not going to support them. You're going to reject them. If your claim is H1, they're number 1 in your heart. You're going to support them. Good? Is that?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay. So here, because our H naught was our claim, we're going to use the word reject here. Is everybody with me? So what happened was, so this reject is from the claim. H naught. All right, since your claim is H naught, you're going to reject. So what's going on? So remember my H naught says that I'm right here. I'm still in this white range. So I did not have enough evidence to reject my claim. If I'd gotten out here or out there, then I would have enough evidence to reject the claim and say that I'm not right there. Please note that not enough evidence to reject the claim is not the same thing as having enough evidence to support the claim. You cannot say that there is enough evidence to support the claim that it is 17%. The thing about it is, not enough evidence is kind of wishy-washy, right? Maybe it's 17%, maybe not. I don't have enough evidence to say it's not. But it might be. It might be guilty, right? They might be guilty. I don't have enough evidence to convict them. So not enough evidence to reject is sort of, it's not as strong as having enough evidence to support. Enough evidence to support means you are sure. It's strong. So don't swap those two around. Evidence has to do with whether you are out there or in between. In between, not enough evidence. You can't say for sure one thing or the other. Okay, let's take a break. It is 20 after. We'll come back at 6:30.